So welcome, first convention of 2024. Are you excited?
Ooh.
We are heading to Columbia, South Carolina today, going to the Columbia Anime and Video Game Expo. Is that what it's called? Comic Expo? I don't remember the actual name of the event. It's a convention in Columbia. It's small-ish, I think, but it's the first one of the year, so it's going to be fun. Been a few months since we've been to one, so I'm excited to go to another one. I've got some games with me that I'm going to see about trading with some of the vendors that are there. I know there are at least 2 there. Maybe there'll be a couple others. So we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, let's go. So that was the the Columbia Anime and Video Game Expo. I finally learned the name. Show them the thing.
What thing?
The penguin. It's a crochet penguin, and the best part, his hood comes down. So I got some games there. We don't come to Columbia all that often, so we are going to go stop in at this Second and Charles here, and then probably get food and probably go home after that. But this is a nice little show. It's a bit bigger than I expected it to be, especially given the location. The location I expected it to be, with the location it's in, I expected it to be a lot smaller than it was. A lot fewer vendors than there actually were, and more people had games than I expected. So that makes me happy. So yeah, let's go do the Second and Charles thing and then the food thing. You ready?
Ready.
Let's go. So Second and Charles is pretty much a bust. Everything's just a little overpriced at the Columbia one. I've always kind of felt that at that store. But I think that's it. We are on our way home now, and we'll hit the desk and I'll show you what we got, because we got some cool stuff and I'm excited. So let's go do.
What's up, guys? So take 2 of recording this. What you just saw was what I remembered to film whenever we were at the Columbia Anime and Video Game Expo last weekend. It was a bit bigger than I expected, but also less people. I think the weather kind of kept some people from coming out, at least as early as they did, as early as we were there. It was just like very rainy and dreary and gross outside, so some people probably didn't want to come out in that, and I get that. But it was nice because it was a much bigger space than I expected, and while there were more vendors than I expected, everyone was also very spread out. So there wasn't a lot of people there to kind of bump shoulders into, and you just know how that gets. That kind of hinders the fun a little bit whenever you're having to push through people just to get to see anything, you know? But that's not why you guys are here. You're not here to listen to me talk about the convention. You're here to see the clips from the convention and then to see what I picked up from the convention. So let's just dive right into that. This was a bit more of a musical centered gets for me. The first 3 things I'm going to talk about are all centered around music. First one is actually this really neat soundtrack. This is the Super Mario History 25th Anniversary soundtrack. Back in 2010, this got released. I don't know the context of this getting released. Maybe this was a Club Nintendo thing, or maybe it was something that you could just buy from Nintendo directly. But it's this, it's a CD with a bunch of like the Mario themes on it from a bunch of the different games, and then this booklet on the history of Mario, which is really, really cool. And then the first 10 songs on the album, the first 10 tracks on the album were actually like music tracks, and then the last 10 tracks on the album looked to be like sound effects and stuff like that. It's real neat to have something like this in my collection. I don't think it's worth very much, but it doesn't have to be because it's just cool, you know? The next thing I got music related was actually a vinyl. Back a few years ago, the artists Mikkel and Game Chops actually produced this like lo-fi collection of Zelda tracks. And they produced 3 albums, and all of them have been pressed to vinyl. But Red Finds Games, you remember me talking about him a bunch of times in the past. Jeremy has added vinyl to his booth, and I actually snagged a copy of the first Zelda and Chill album on vinyl, which is really freaking sweet. But I've got to get a record player now so I can actually sit and listen to this thing proper. And the third thing that I picked up, while it is a game, it is still music related. I picked up the Bit Trip Saga on the 3DS. I don't know if you guys have ever played any of the Bit Trip games, but these games are actually like really, really fun. Although I have to say I've never actually owned them. Whenever these were coming out back on the Wii, I downloaded the demos for every single one, but then never actually bought any of them. Which is really funny, but also kind of sad, because I always really enjoyed them, but I never got to experience the full games. Well, now I can. Now, the next thing I picked up was for the Sega Genesis. It was Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Funnily enough, this is actually my first experience with Sonic the Hedgehog, though not on the Genesis. My cousin had a like Sonic Gems collection or something on his computer. He had like a CD-ROM of it. Whenever I was a kid, whenever we'd go visit him and his family, I would sit down at his computer and play Sonic every once in a while. And that was the only time I ever really got to play Sonic the Hedgehog until I picked up whatever the collection on the GameCube was. Interestingly enough, Sonic 3 here has been like one of the hardest ones to track down because I knew I wanted it complete, and I did get it complete. Although the cartridge isn't in the best shape, but I've noticed that tends to be the case with Genesis games. Like the label has a little bit of damage, so it's like, it's whatever, because I feel like I got this for a good deal. But Genesis cartridges just overall seem to be in worse shape than Super Nintendo cartridges. Does anyone have any like ideas to why that is? As I've been collecting games, it's something that I've noticed, and it just makes me curious as to why. If you have any insight on that, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. The next thing I picked up was Aero the Acrobat. Now, I've heard interesting things about this game. I know that this is one of those like devilishly hard games that came out back in the day, and I believe it's a platformer. So hard platformers I'm all in on, so long as it's like fair hard. Like Super Meat Boy is hard, but it's fair, because every time you mess up, it feels like it's your fault. Whereas something like, the old game, the Unfair Platformer, that game is meant to be infuriating kind of hard. I don't know which one this is, and I'm be very interested to find out. The next thing I picked up was a copy of Pokemon Black. The Gen 5 games have been very difficult to get my hands on, not because they're hard to find, because they're not, but for whatever reason, these have gotten like stupidly expensive. And don't get me wrong, I didn't exactly get this cheap, but I feel like I got a fair deal, especially since I got this from the same person that I got Aero the Acrobat from, and he gave me a decent deal to get both whenever I wanted to get both of them. Essentially, I got Aero for free. While this was not a cheap game, it is complete. Everything is in here and everything's in good condition. So I'm very happy to have this in my collection, and I'm soon going to start getting the rest of the DS Pokemon games. God help me when I go to get Platinum or Black and White too, because good God, that's gonna suck. And the last thing I picked up was actually on the GameCube. It's the GameCube game by the Behemoth, Alien Hominid. You might recognize this art style, but for those who don't know, this is from the same guys that made Castle Crashers and Battle Block Theater and the games that came after that, because I didn't play them and I don't remember their names. Funnily enough, this was actually like a Flash game back in the day. So it originated on, I want to say it originated on Newgrounds, though I'm probably wrong about that. But this actually originated as a Flash game back in the day. So I don't know if this was the Behemoth's first game, period, but it was definitely their first game on console. It's actually super nice to have a copy of this because I know this one's getting up there as far as value is concerned, which annoys me because back like 10 years ago or so, 10, 12 years ago, I actually had a chance to get this for like $6 and I didn't. Regardless of that, I essentially got this for free. And I had a bunch of trade-in stuff that I wanted to take with me because I like doing business with Jeremy, and if I have some stuff to trade, I want to take it to him because he's always been good to me, and I want to make sure that I can kind of return the favor if I can. I got Alien Hominid and the Zelda and Shield vinyl, and honestly barely paid anything for them. The one bad thing about it is Alien Hominid did not come with its manual. He let me know, and he was very upfront about that, and I went ahead and got it anyway because I knew I'd be able to track down a manual, even if it is annoying to have to track one down, especially for a game that's getting up there in value because the loose pieces are also getting up there in value. I was okay with it because I barely paid anything for the game, and getting a manual would just kind of be part of the cost at that point. Luckily, I did find one. I overpaid for it, but whatever. I now have a complete copy of Alien Hominid. And yeah, that's what I got at the Columbia Anime and Video Game Expo. Really good show. Looking forward to going back next year if they have another one. It felt good for that to be the first convention of the year. And I'm looking forward to more conventions because we've got one in February, we've got one in April, we've got one in May, we've got one in July, and one in, I think, October. And that's just the conventions that we know about that we're planning to go to. I'm sure there will be others that we hear about throughout the year that we'll try and go to as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, y'all.